Greetings, YouTube. There was a time in my life when I was extremely paranoid. I pretty much didn't trust anybody. And this came out of my post-traumatic stress disorder, my anxiety, and my depression. Interestingly, I almost always felt safer outside than inside. My anxiety was the highest when I was inside. That was because as a child, all of my abuse took place inside. And outside, I felt that I had avenues of escape. When in actuality, of course, being a child, having no rights, you had almost no avenues of escape. So it was illusion, but I spent a lot of time running around the woods when I was a kid because I felt safer out there. But now I'm 51, and I've gotten my depression under control. My anxiety is so much better than it ever has been. And I think I'm getting to the point where I may be ending my therapy in the near future because I've gotten to the point where I'm now coping with the daily stresses that at one time could cripple me for hours or days or even weeks. Now I'm getting these things under control in minutes. It's really quite pleasant. But one of the things that I think this has done, well, it made me slightly more curmudgeonly in a certain regards. Certain regards such as, who is responsible for my physical safety? And I pretty much don't think anybody is. And why do I bring this up? Well, recently, Regal Theaters, this chain of movie theaters in the United States, I think they're outside the United States, but relevant to my life because I live in the United States and they're here in my town, or right next to my town. And I've been to Regal Theaters hundreds of times in my life. They recently instigated a policy where they're going to be searching bags for firearms. Which to me is a massive overreach. Completely and utterly meaningless. But a really good way to make sure you're not carrying cameras or food now, isn't it? What a coincidence. Now, I think this is literally security theater. I mean, you're going to the theater and this is a security farce. This is not going to protect you at all from anything. I can guarantee you that a person can carry firearms or explosives on their body in a dozen different places that will never be seen from a bag search. And in fact, unless they are law enforcement and have justifiable reasons patting you down, no minimum wage slave is ever going to find this stuff. You're never going to let a minimum wage slave pat you down now, are you? Which is why I don't go to the airport. I'm not letting the TSA pat me down either. Or scan me. And I mentioned this to a friend of mine. I was upset at the fact that they take this policy, because it means eventually all the theaters will probably pick it up. And there are only 2 theater chains in my area, so it only takes 2 of them to do it. And now I can't go to movie theaters. Because I refuse to engage in this security farce. Because it's what it is. It's a farce. And he felt that it was okay for them to do this because he feels that they are creating an environment where he's safer. As much as I love my buddy, he's wrong. They're not creating an environment where he's safer. At all. Like I said, there's at least a dozen places on the human body you can sneak things into a theater that will never be found in a bag search. Or obvious pockets, like in a pair of cargo pants. And I'm not willing to give that up. Because you see, in one regard, I do expect them to keep me safe. I expect them to make sure the plumbing works. I make sure that all of the electrical systems are up to code, the fire systems up to code, fire detection and fire suppression, and that they're making all their foods up to code. They're following all health codes. That's it. That's where our engagement in the safety dynamic ends, as far as I'm concerned, with any private business I walk into. Now, if it's a private business that touts itself as selling security, and they can show me that they're actually engaging in practices that are security, and I choose to engage in them, that's a different matter. But just saying, we're going to check bags for firearms, and also cameras and food, that's not security. That's a joke. It's a placebo. It's to make people feel better about the fact that now they're safe. But they're not safe. I can guarantee you they're not safe. And we need to stop pretending we're safe. Now, people who've watched my channel for a while will say, but you're a socialist, you believe in socialized medicine. I do believe in socialized medicine. You see, I believe in socialized medicine because I have compassion and I'm a pragmatist. And the best way to keep my nation and the people of the world healthy is through socialized medicine. And a healthy population is better for everyone. Means the workforce is healthier, means I'm not at risk for as many diseases. It's best for everyone, and the best way to achieve that is single-payer universal health care. It's the cheapest method, it's the most effective method, everyone gets covered, we have the best chance of making sure we catch mental illness early. It is simply the best means of achieving my safety. If you're going to look at this from a purely pragmatic position, if you were to shelve empathy, sympathy, compassion, if you were to be an absolute narcissist and egoist, absolute, the best thing in your interest is a single-payer universal healthcare system to keep you safe. But I do possess empathy, sympathy, and compassion, and I don't want to see anyone suffer. But when it comes to my physical safety, I don't expect anyone to be in charge of it. Cops don't stop crime. Unless crime takes place next to a cop, which is a really dumb criminal. Cops catch criminals if we're lucky. They are a long-term deterrent because criminals will know that there's a good chance they're going to be caught. Not always. And particularly with the racial bias in America, depending on what your racial background is, you're going to have a much better chance of getting away with the crime than if you have different racial background. Okay? Depends how wealthy you are. Rich people get away with crimes a whole lot more often than poor people. So, your safety is not based upon the police being present at all times. Because unless there's a cop next to every single citizen, which would mean half the population was cops and half the population wasn't, and that's called a police state, cops don't stop crime. It's just like firemen don't stop fires. The rare instance when a fire starts near a fireman, they stop it. But most of the times, they come to a fire after it's already engaged. Same thing. So it's my job to be aware of my surroundings, and to be aware that if there's a fire near me, to call up a fireman, or address it myself if it's small. I don't expect the cops to save my ass. I don't expect the firemen to save my ass in that moment. I expect them to do their job after the event. They are a reactive force. And I don't expect a movie theater to protect me. When I walk into a room, I see the exits. Remember, I used to be really paranoid. I try to sit myself so I can see the room and there's no one behind me if I can. Remember, I used to be really paranoid, and these reflexes have been hard fought to lose. I've gotten better at it. I can sit with not my back against the room and I'm okay. But there was a time when I couldn't. When I needed to make sure there was a wall behind me. I guess I was still vulnerable to ninjas. But I don't want someone to say, well, we're going to check your bag and that's going to make you safe, because it isn't. It's a lie. Remember how I mentioned that whole universal healthcare thing? The aspect that I mentioned about mental health, if we have a robust mental health system, it will mean that we will make everyone safer as well from violence. We also have to do things like make sure that everyone has food, shelter, and education, things like that. Because people who are fed and housed and educated aren't violent. And that's the problem. People aren't fed and housed and educated properly. And yes, part of that education, as much as it's going to dismay some of the viewers of my videos, means dismantling the patriarchy. See, I threw a little feminism there for you. So I don't want a theater to tell me that I'm safer when they're lying to me. I just want them to say, here's the movie, here's our overpriced food, come engage in commerce. I avoid the overpriced food, but I do go to the movies. Not often, more a little bit now than I used to. For a long time I hadn't been in movies. I go like once a year. Lately it's been more like 4 or 5 times so far this year, I think. But I don't want them to pretend they're keeping me safe. And I don't want them lying to the public and telling them they're keeping them safe, because they aren't. And I've rambled on long enough. The point being here, a movie theater can't keep you safe. Not now, not ever. Stop pretending they can. Stop buying into their bullshit. Realize that in these instances, that I am responsible for my own safety. That if someone decides to attack another human being, it is my decision what I do in that moment. Not the movie theaters. So, take it for what you will. I just don't want places searching us. I don't want them to be infringing upon our Fourth Amendment rights. I don't want them to get to the point where I can't engage in any form of commerce because I can't go into any place that sells services or goods I want, because they're all going to engage in security farce. Because that's what this is. Let's make sure we have a society where violence is lower by addressing the really big issues that drive violence. This kind of crap. Searching your bags in a theater, that's going after the symptoms, not the problem. So, let's not do that.